Have you ever wondered what happens when someone with billions of dollars suddenly loses it all? Does their life completely fall apart? Do they end up on the street, or do they somehow manage to bounce back? It's a fascinating question that pulls back the curtain on the world of extreme wealth and spectacular failure. Today, we're diving deep into the dramatic stories of billionaires who lost their fortunes and exploring what their experiences teach us about money, resilience, and the very nature of success. Let's start with a name that might ring a bell. Ike Batista. Once the richest man in Brazil and the seventh richest in the world, Batista was a larger-than-life figure. His empire was built on mining, oil, and gas. He was the embodiment of Brazil's booming economy, promising a golden era of prosperity. At his peak in 2012, his net worth was estimated at over $30 billion. He lived a life most of us can only dream of, with private jets, lavish homes, and a celebrity status. But then, the dream turned into a nightmare. The downfall of Ike Batista was as swift as his rise was meteoric. The oil wells his companies were drilling turned out to be mostly dry. The promised black gold was just a mirage. As this news broke, investor confidence evaporated overnight. Stock prices for his companies plummeted, creating a domino effect that wiped out his entire fortune. Within just a couple of years, his $30 billion vanished, leaving him with a staggering debt of over $1 billion. So, what happened next? Did he end up working a regular 9-to-5 job? Not exactly. Batista's fall from grace wasn't just a financial one, it was also a legal one. He faced charges for insider trading and market manipulation. His assets were frozen, he was sentenced to house arrest, and his glamorous lifestyle became a distant memory. This is a common theme we see. When billionaires fall, it's often not just a simple case of bad investments. The collapse is frequently tied to legal troubles, as the immense pressure to maintain and grow such wealth can lead to cutting corners or breaking rules. For Batista, the loss of money was compounded by the loss of his freedom and reputation. His story serves as a stark warning about the dangers of overpromising and building an empire on shaky foundations. But not all stories end in legal battles. Let's look at another fascinating case, Sean Quinn. At one point, Quinn was Ireland's richest man. He started with a small quarry on his family's farm and built a colossal business conglomerate spanning insurance, real estate, and manufacturing. He was a national hero, a self-made man who represented the Celtic Tiger economic boom. His wealth peaked at around $6 billion. He was known for his down-to-earth personality, often seen driving a modest car despite his immense riches. Quinn's Achilles heel was a massive, risky bet on the Anglo-Irish Bank. He used a complex financial instrument to secretly buy a huge stake in the bank, believing its shares would continue to rise. But then, the 2008 global financial crisis hit. The Irish property bubble burst, and the Anglo-Irish Bank was at the epicenter of the collapse. The value of Quinn's shares was annihilated. He didn't just lose his investment, he had borrowed heavily to make it, and now the bank he had bet on was coming after him for billions. The aftermath was brutal. In Ireland, Sean Quinn was declared bankrupt. His entire empire was dismantled to pay off debts. He lost everything, the companies he had spent a lifetime building, his properties, and his status. He even spent a brief period in jail for contempt of court after trying to move assets out of the reach of the bank. But here's where his story takes a different turn from Batista's. Quinn never lost the support of his local community. They saw him as a victim of the banks, a local hero who had been brought down by a system he didn't fully understand. So, what happens to a man like this? He tries to start over. Even after losing it all, the entrepreneurial spirit doesn't just disappear. Quinn and his family have been involved in various legal battles to try and regain control of parts of their former empire, and they've attempted to launch new business ventures. This highlights a key point for many of these individuals. The drive that made them billionaires in the first place doesn't vanish with the money. It's an innate part of who they are. They are builders, risk-takers, and strategists. Losing the game doesn't mean they stop wanting to play. They still have their knowledge, their experience, and often, a network of contacts who remember their past successes. This brings us to an important question. Can a billionaire who loses everything truly be poor in the way we understand it? The answer is usually no. Even when they're declared bankrupt, they often have advantages that the average person doesn't. They possess an incredible skill set in business and negotiation. They have a network of wealthy and influential friends who might be willing to help them get back on their feet. Think about it. If you had a choice to invest in a brand new entrepreneur or someone who has already built a billion-dollar company and knows exactly what pitfalls to avoid, who would you bet on? This is what's often called social capital. It's the value of your relationships and reputation. While a public downfall can tarnish a reputation, the core skills and connections often remain. A former billionaire might not have cash, but they have a wealth of knowledge and a phone book full of people who might give them a second chance. They can become consultants, join advisory boards, or find investors for a new idea far more easily than someone starting from scratch. Their failure itself becomes part of their story, a lesson in what not to do, which can be incredibly valuable to others. Let's consider the psychological impact. Losing billions of dollars is an unimaginable level of stress. We hear stories of depression, identity crisis, and profound loss. Your entire sense of self, which may have been tied to your wealth and success, is shattered. For some, like the German industrialist Adolf Merkel, the financial collapse can lead to tragedy. Faced with billions in debt during the 2008 crisis, he took his own life, unable to cope with the failure and the loss of the family company. However, others demonstrate remarkable psychological resilience. They reframe their failure as a learning experience. They focus on what they still have, their family, their health, and their knowledge. This mindset is crucial. Instead of seeing themselves as a failed billionaire, they see themselves as an entrepreneur who is simply between projects. This ability to mentally separate their self-worth from their net worth is perhaps the most important asset they retain. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? When billionaires lose their money, a few things happen. Firstly, their descent is often public, dramatic, and frequently entangled with legal issues. The very aggression and risk-taking that built their fortunes can also be the cause of their downfall. Secondly, they don't usually end up on the streets. Their zero is very different from our zero. They retain invaluable social capital, skills, and networks that give them a significant advantage in starting over. They might lose their jets and yachts, but they don't lose the blueprint for building them. Finally, the most successful comebacks are fueled by an unbreakable spirit and a resilient mindset. They treat their massive failure as the world's most expensive business lesson. While their stories are filled with drama and cautionary tales, they also offer a powerful message about resilience. It's a reminder that true wealth isn't just the number in your bank account, but also your knowledge, your relationships, and your ability to get back up after being knocked down, no matter how hard the fall. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of fallen giants. It's a fascinating subject with so many layers. What do you think is the biggest asset a former billionaire has? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. See you in the next one.